So you sent us this really fascinating book, The Life of Sri Rama-Krishna, and wow, right near the start, you get these incredibly unique origin stories.
Yeah, they really jump out at you.
Definitely. So for this deep dive, we're going to explore the extraordinary accounts surrounding his birth, basically as they're laid out in this biography.
All right.
Our mission really is to unpack the key events and how the biography interprets them, especially looking at how these, spiritual experiences and very real-world, earthly things seem to connect.
It's quite striking how the book sets the scene, almost like it's signaling, okay, this isn't going to be an ordinary life story. The way Khudiram's and Chandra Devi's experiences happen almost side by side. It suggests something planned, doesn't it?
It really does. Let's start with Khudiram then, Sri Rama-Krishna's father. The biography talks about his pilgrimage to Gaya. He's there to perform these important ceremonies for his ancestors. And you really get the sense from the text that this wasn't just a duty, but it brought him this profound joy, this deep satisfaction.
The book definitely leans into that, yeah. It feels like this act of devotion, this connection to his ancestors. It kind of paves the way for the extraordinary stuff that follows.
Exactly. And then right there, in that context of devotion, he has this incredibly powerful dream.
Ah, yes, the dream at the Gadadhar temple.
That's the one. He sees his forefathers like feasting, and there's this brilliant divine light all around, and then this radiant person appears, sitting on a throne. It's quite an image the book paints.
It is. And what's really key is the direct communication. This luminous person basically tells Khudiram, I'm pleased with your devotion and I'm going to be born as your son in your cottage. That's the core prophecy right there.
But Khudiram's reaction feels so human, doesn't it? He doesn't just go, great.
Not at all.
He's immediately like, but I'm so poor, how can I possibly serve you properly?
Right.
He expresses his humility, his feeling of inadequacy. It feels very genuine.
Absolutely. It makes him relatable, I think, and it makes the divine promise seem even bigger somehow. The figure then reassures him, basically saying, don't worry about it, which is crucial. It overcomes Khudiram's very understandable hesitation.
And even after this huge life-altering dream, the book says Khudiram decides, okay, I'm keeping this quiet. He heads home towards the end of April, just holding on to this incredible, almost unbelievable secret.
Which is the perfect segue to Chandra Devi's experiences, because they're happening concurrently. It's not just the father getting signs, the mother is having her own really unusual things happen too.
Yeah, Chandra Devi's story is also pretty wild. It starts with this recurring dream, or maybe a vision, a luminous figure looking like her husband is standing beside her.
Right, and the weird part is how it lingers even after she wakes up. It sort of blurs that line between dream and reality.
And her first thought is so practical. She thinks maybe someone broke in.
Exactly. Checks the door, finds it bolted. She looks for the logical explanation first.
And when that doesn't work, she tells her friends, Prasanna and Dani. And what do they say?
Basically, oh, it was just a dream, don't worry about it. They kind of brush it off.
Yeah, which really highlights how strange these experiences were, even to her close friends. They just didn't have a category for it.
It really sets up the contrast between her everyday world and these, extraordinary events unfolding.
Yeah.
And then comes the incident at the Shiva temple. That's even more dramatic, the way it's described.
Oh, definitely. The book talks about this flood of celestial light pouring out of the Shiva image. It moves towards her, specifically towards her.
And then enters her body. Yeah, it's a really intense image.
So intense that she actually passes out, loses consciousness.
And Dani, who's with her, her reaction is interesting too. First, she's just baffled, right? She sees Chandra collapse.
Right.
Then she kind of rationalizes it, thinking, oh, maybe it's some kind of nervous illness. It's that human need to find a familiar explanation, even if it doesn't quite fit.
But Chandra herself, afterwards, she has this strong feeling, this intuition.
That she's pregnant, yeah. Like she understands on some deeper level what just happened.
Okay, so we've got Khudiram returning from Gaya around late April, carrying his secret dream. And Chandra Devi has had these visions and this intense experience at the temple. And the biography says that when Khudiram gets back, he notices a change in her.
Yes, that's presented as a really significant point. She becomes noticeably kinder, more compassionate, really driven to help her neighbors, even if it costs her something personally. The book frames as sort of an outward sign of this inner spiritual shift.
And eventually, she tells Khudiram about her experiences, the visions, the light, and her feeling that she's pregnant. And his reaction is completely different from her friends.
Totally different. He doesn't dismiss it. He doesn't try to explain it away medically like Donnie maybe did.
No, he immediately connects it to his own vision in Gaya.
Yeah.
This is where their two separate extraordinary stories really merge, isn't it?
Exactly. His dream validates her experience, and her pregnancy seems to make his prophecy real, tangible.
And he reassures her, telling her, essentially, yes, this is divine, we're blessed, expect strange things. He also tells her to keep quiet about the visions, though.
Right, maybe to protect her from gossip or disbelief.
And the book says she found comfort in that and kind of accepted it. But then it goes on to mention the Chatterjee family accounts. Apparently, these visions weren't just one-offs for Chandra.
No, they became almost daily occurrences, according to these accounts. Seeing celestial beings, hearing voices, bells tinkling.
Whispered conversations with beings she couldn't see. And the book stresses these happened when her eyes were open, not while she was deep in prayer or meditation.
Which makes them seem even more spontaneous, maybe more objectively real in the context of the narrative, like the divine is just breaking into her normal waking life.
It's quite something to picture. And the biography itself kind of acknowledges how extraordinary this all sounds. It even draws parallels to stories about the births of other prophets or major spiritual figures around the world.
That's a key point, I think. It's positioning Ramakrishna's birth within a Jacobinized pattern, suggesting these kinds of signs aren't totally unheard of for figures considered, well, incarnations or divinely sent.
And they make a point of saying these stories come from reliable sources, not just, rumor or legend. At least that's the claim within the biography itself.
Right. It lends a certain weight to the narrative they're building.
So then the story moves towards the actual birth. We get the date, February 17th, 1836 in the morning. Chandra Devi feels like the time is near.
And the birth itself happens the following night. Donnie, her neighbor, is there to help.
And the place where she gives birth. It's described as really humble, isn't it? Just a small room, or maybe even a shed attached to the house.
Yeah, containing a husking machine, like for processing rice, and an oven. Very basic, everyday things.
It really grounds the story in this simple, rural reality. But then the book mentions it was springtime, the vernal season. As a touch of symbolism, maybe. New life, renewal.
Perhaps. But then comes the really bizarre part.
Okay, yeah. The baby isn't immediately found with the mother.
No. Donnie apparently finds the infant in the nearby oven, covered in ashes, and silent.
Wow. Jeez. In the oven? That's incredibly strange.
It really is. And Donnie's reaction is just utter shock. And then she realizes the baby seems huge, the size of a 6-month-old, the book claims.
So another detail that defies normal expectations. This wasn't just any birth.
Clearly not, according to this account. But then, despite the weirdness, there's joy. Friends and neighbors celebrate, the conch shells are blown, the traditional announcement.
And Khudiram, who knew some astrology, apparently checked the time of birth.
Yes, and he found it incredibly auspicious. Predicted a brilliant future, basically. The biography notes that other astrologers later agreed, reinforcing this idea of destiny.
So for Khudiram, this birth, with all its strange details, plus the auspicious timing, it must have felt like total confirmation.
Absolutely. Confirmation of his dream in Gaya, confirmation of Chandra's visions, confirmation that this child was indeed divine, just as promised.
And fittingly, the biography says he named the boy Gadadhar.
Right, specifically in memory of that vision he had at the temple of Gadadhar in Gaya. The name itself becomes a link back to the prophecy.
So if we just recap the main points of the biography, we have Khudiram's really vivid prophetic dream,
where this divine being promises to be born as his son.
Then we have Chandra Devi's ongoing visions, especially that powerful experience of light entering her at the temple.
And her subsequent feeling of being pregnant.
And finally, the birth itself, with those very unusual circumstances finding the baby silent in the oven, his large size.
It's a remarkable sequence of events, as presented in the book.
And the biography clearly positions all of this as foundational, as deeply significant events that foreshadow the extraordinary life story it's about to tell.
Absolutely. So, considering these pretty remarkable narratives from the biography, it does make you think, doesn't it, about beginnings, about the kinds of stories that often surround people who are later seen as extraordinary.
Yeah, what parts of these accounts really stand out? Is it the divine communication, the dreams, the visions, or is it the strange physical events around the birth itself?
It's interesting to reflect on how these things, personal spiritual experiences, the way a culture interprets them, and the telling and retelling of the story might all weave together. How they contribute to shaping the narrative of a life deemed truly significant. Something for us all to think about based on what we've just discussed from this biography.
I hope you like this chapter. We need volunteers and sponsors to create content with even better quality and with more variety. If you wish to join this initiative as a volunteer or sponsor, please click the links given in description below. To help us reach more viewers, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Biography Central. Thank you for your time. It means a lot. Namaste.